everyone, I'm back from OpenClay, and today I'm going to be looking at BlueGem version 1.1 in Unreal Engine 5.0.3. Okay, so to get underway, I'm in this new level of BlueGem Earth Countries, which is now the default level, and this one has a new version of BlueGem, which has the meshes of the world that are split up to align with the different countries of the world. So there's 207 countries in this version. So we can see that some countries fall onto a single piece like Italy here, and we see other countries such as France are split over two tiles. And there are additional areas of France, so they actually, you can see, cover more tiles here. Okay, so jumping into things, what I'm going to do is, if I want to, for instance, change all the materials of the world, what we can do is just come up to the GeoLand parent here, and this has the material instance applied to it. So I'm just going to double click that, bring that over to the side, and maybe I'll just move the viewport around a little bit. And so what I can do now is adjust any of these settings and they'll be applied to the globe. So to begin with, the parameters have been reordered and new ones have been added, such as the effects down here. Now instead of going through these all here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the parameters of Italy here. So if I want to, instead of changing, let's say, something globally like this, I'm going to go and just want to work on a country basis. I'm going to close the master surface instance material. And there's a couple of ways that I can navigate to this country material. So I can go through my BlueGem Earth directory and bring this up a little bit. Choose materials, instances, and go to countries. And inside of countries, we see we have the 207 countries that I mentioned. So in this case, if I just want to work on Italy, I can look for Italy and double click that one. And we can see here the parameters that are differentiating it from the master surface instance material. For instance, the land flat color intensity is set to 1. So if I set this to 0, we'll get that original texture in there. So I'll put this back to 1. We can see we can change the flat color. So you'll notice that when I move the swatch around here, it doesn't update immediately. I often have to say OK for it to update in the viewport. The other thing is sometimes you'll find that that doesn't even update in the viewport. And to see it update, you'll just have to toggle on the feature and then it will update in the viewport. Okay, so moving on, perhaps I'll set this back to this gold color or something like that, a bit more yolky. Then we have the water flat color intensity. And in this case, we can see we've got a variety of colors on the bathymetry or the ocean floor here. And if I put this up to 1, it doesn't look like there's any difference. But and that's because basically we're just working on a per country basis. So this water flat color intensity really only applies when we're working on this master surface instance material that we looked at before. So I'm going to untick that. The surface color desaturation, here we're going to see that it desaturates the overall look, and in this case it's just a flat color. So if I reduce that flat color, we can see that this, for instance, desaturates this one country. This is a good one, for instance, if you're working on maybe the entire planet and you set I'm on the master surface instance material here, and if I put this desaturation up to 1, then you can do things like for Italy, you can highlight it just by not desaturating it. So carrying on, we have the water flat color. Again, this is relating to the water flat color intensity, which is not particularly going to have any effect when we're just dealing with a single country like this. And moving along, we have the normal flatness. And in this case, what this does is it flattens the normal if we put it up to 1. So that's flatten the normal. And if I put it to -1, it increases the effect of the normal. Now, you'll probably notice there's very slight shift, if any, and you probably have to crank this up to very high amounts to exceed the basically the terrain effect of the actual geometry here. So I'm going to leave this at 1, and I'm going to return back to my master surface material and just reduce that desaturation to 0. Returning to Italy, we've got some stylization options here. Now in this case, it's a little bit difficult to see some of these features out here, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit and maybe get in a bit close like this. So we can see some of the inland water bodies here. So if I change the water roughness, this is actually going to be changing the specular roughness on these water bodies. And they can also change just how specular they are. By default, they're set to 1, but if you want to reduce that, you can drop that down. Then there is a metallic parameter, and this one can be turned on and gives a metallic appearance. So usually this is going to be a value of 0 or 1. It's very rare that we ever encounter anything in the real world that is not going to be exhibiting a 0 or 1 characteristic. Okay, so turning that one off, I'm going to zoom back out and fly over this way a bit. Then we have the country border intensity. So at the moment it's set to 1, and we can see that the color is set to black, so I can change the color here and get a different look, something like that. I can also go and change the country border thickness. So this is all texture thickness, there are no meshes here. And you can type to be larger than the range that's set out by default here. Okay, maybe 0.05. And the internal borders are also available. So we can go and say we want to have those visible and we want them to be red, let's say. Now one thing you will notice moving along is that the surface lights have an intensity of 0. So I might put those back to 3, which is the default, and you can see them appear now. So they're controlled by the sun, and we can see that they're going to come on when the sun is not shining directly on Italy, and disappear once the sun comes overhead. We can also do things like, I might just drop the sun down. We can also do things like change the color. So if we want Italy to have a different set of lights, we can do that. And maybe we want to have lots of intensity. All right, that's a bit too much. It looks like it's Mordor or something like that. I'll drop that one out and return it back to reset that one. And you can see this is one of those cases where the viewport doesn't update even though the value's been set to a new value. So I'll just turn that off and on again. We can see it update correctly. Okay, we also have the surface lights terminator advancement. So the terminator here basically for where the lights should appear and disappear relative to the sun's terminator. And I might just do these surface lights terminator adjustments on this master surface instance. So here we are, and I'm just going to go and I'll change this hardness. So right along here, we should see instead of this being soft like this, it hardens up. If I go to, let's say 500, and we can see it sharpens up along here. Okay, we can also drop that down, and we can see that if we reduce the terminator advancement, we're in a lot of darkness before we actually see the lights come on. Whereas if we put this up to, let's say 1.2, we can see that those lights, actually this is in sunlight, and so those night lights are coming on just before darkness falls. Okay, I'll set those back to what they were. The next thing I may want to do is having a pulsing effect. So I could turn on this pulse color intensity and for Italy, and right now it's set to 0%. So I'll change this to 100% and we can see it pulsing like so. That's a bit too intense, so I'll put it to 0.5. Maybe I'll change the pulse color so that it's gold like that. And then I can do things like change its pulse speed, so I can slow it down if I want, or I can make it really fast. And I can also do things like change my pulse offset. And so this is useful if I have, for instance, adjacent countries and I don't want them to be pulsing at the exact same time. I can give them different offset values so that they pulse, offset from one another. So flat emission intensity is similar to the lamp flat color here, but it's going to be a base emission intensity instead of a flat color in the color channel. So I'll put this to, let's say, 0.1, and I'll change the flat emission color to something like a red, and we get something more like that. Okay, I think that's it for the features here. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you in another video.